I've been up for a little while. Um, I've been been asleep for hours and hours and hours and hours, as usual. I don't have any trouble with sleep, I can tell you that now. Because I exercise my brain. I keep my brain active, and so you sleep better. So I'm almost finished my coffee. So if you hear me taking breaks, it's just because I'm having a sip. So, yeah, for the last couple of days, I've been sitting on a new movie idea. Um, Obviously, in an ideal world, I can have foundations in many countries all over the world where, as soon as they were set up and all the staff were in place, I could hand them a game, a movie, a comic, a TV show to make, and then that's them busy, that's them off. They can do their thing. And then the more hands that are on deck, the faster we can get the stuff that I've created out and get it up on my streaming service that I want to create in an ideal world. Otherwise, the stuff that I'm creating will sit in a file, so to speak, and when they need to make a movie, when they need to make a show, when they need a game to make, like they're never going to run out of ideas. One of the things that I learned being married to my ex, being a video games industry wife, I learned that the worst thing that can happen to a video games company is not having any work. Then they had to resort to doing things like iOS games, which for big games companies is a little bit like, not below the grade, but they're there to make like triple A's and all that, right? So yeah, so when I decided that I wanted to make video games like 7 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, yeah, about maybe 6 years ago, is because I always knew when I started writing. Well, no, it might have been 7 years ago, because I started taking notes down for. God, hang on, sorry, memory loss from narcissistic abuse. It does things. I am getting my memory back though. I'm having high cholesterol, high fat, high protein diet, and it's doing wonders. Once I've got the money again, I'll buy the mushroom vitamins. They're phenomenal. Yeah, so it was when I was writing the Quantum Menace, I always knew that I wanted to turn the Quantum Menace comic book into a video game. And my ex was supposed to be like the unofficial art director. He would be in charge of who I gave jobs to while he was off travelling about and doing his thing, and I funded his retirement, so to speak. He was going to make sure that the people who helped me make the game were the best, or so I thought. But I learned a lot watching him. He's had like triple A's. He made Toca World touring cars. That was his first gold star. Yeah, he made like Flockers and a lot of iOS games back in the day when iOS games were really popular. But I learned a lot watching him, and I know that the worst thing that can happen is when you've got nothing to make, because then you have no potential to make money. Well, I've made sure that they're always going to have something to make. They're always going to be busy. Even if I only have one foundation, they're always going to be busy. So when my boys and I decided to like really invest in manifesting this art school, we thought was going to be in America, then Canada, then Europe, whatever. We set ourselves the challenge. We set ourselves the challenge of never doing the same thing twice. Every movie that we made, had to be of a different genre, kind of like that dude that did Shaun of the Dead and that. I think they had like some sort of agreement where they'd do their versions of like this, that, and the other. So one of the genres I haven't covered is a war movie, and I came up the day before yesterday with an idea that I just decided for now put a pin in it, called The War Babies. I'm not going to go into the story or anything like that because I just found out that Donald Trump may be behind the stealing of the Dear Satan clause. Typical of Lucifer, to steal a movie about Satan. Apparently he's trying to buy Paramount. It's all over the news. So it looks like that the stealing of my movie came from Donald Trump and his daughter-in-law, Jared Kushner. So they're going to burn in hell. That's Lucifer going down. I can't wait to crush him like a bug. So, yeah, evil little beast that he is. But anyway, never mind. So one of the things, and I did mention it briefly yesterday in my last live, I'm not sure. I wasn't sure whether to come up with a fictional war, like in the series that I'm writing, the Quantum Menace sagas for the radio. The War Babies could absolutely start off as a radio series. I wanted Saturdays to be for dads and granddads and uncles and boys radio night. So we're going to have like our war sagas and, our sci-fi stories. Like if I was ever to turn the Quantum Menace, the conception of Heracles, which is Quantum Menace Part 3, that's our version of Star Wars. We could turn that into a radio series. The Time Jumping Detective, which is our version of Doctor Who, is absolutely going to be a radio series, and I'll put them on Saturday nights, so that dads and granddads and that, and the men and, the big boys and that can sit around and listen to their quote-unquote radio, and hear us listen to the stories and that. I want to get in an industry, especially with radio, where we bring back people sitting around and just closing their eyes and having a whiskey and listening to the story, and just having really incredible sound effects. And, I want to make it realistic. I said to my baby Gabriel when we were doing the Quantum Menace sagas, where he goes to RAF Ashbourne to help the British protect the Americans from the invading Nazis coming in from the east. And they do it by distracting the world with the Hindenburg disaster. And so he uses that opportunity to open up a portal so that I can never remember, my son helped me pick all because I wanted it to be historically accurate, and I think we decided it was mosquitoes. If I'm wrong, he would yell at me, but I'm pretty sure we decided mosquitoes were the best plane for what I needed it for, so that they can zip in, do their thing, and zip back out again while people are still distracted with the Hindenburg disaster, right? So I can turn all of this into radio stories. I can turn all of this into TV series, into movies, all of it, because of how it's written, because of how it's been envisioned. So we do cover stuff about the war, but we haven't done an actual war movie. And I've been sitting here thinking, do I make it about a historical event? Do I make an event up, like with the Quantum Menace sagas, sorry. It's the Soul Collector series and the Quantum Menace sagas. The Soul Collector series is private detective. It's a private detective thing, but it's where Theo, the private investigator Theo, and the detective, Ruby Corazon work for the Ministry of Souls. So they're like underworld private detective and cop sort of thing, but nobody knows that. You know, they're like undercover sort of thing. But the story that I had written for the first episode, they are investigating. She's had to go back to 1930s Chicago to meet Theo because he's investigating a human trafficking ring that may be connected to the mafia. And so she has to go to him to work on this case. She outranks him by quite a bit, but it's 1930s Chicago. She was nothing but a dame. So, yeah, so I've written a lot to keep men's eyes closed and get them imagining again. Granddads and that I really think the King would love my radio series because I know he likes sci-fi and stuff. So I've been trying to figure it out because one of the things that I said if I was Prime Minister, if we impeached Dharma, and I'm like hypothetical, one of the things that I said that I'd do, other than like dropping inheritance tax for farmers and actually giving them subsidies if they went back to being organic and chemical free farming, where they didn't feed the cows all the antibiotics and they got to roam and give them good lives. I would give subsidies to bars and pubs and hotels and buildings and stately homes and farmland, anyone who owned land. I'd give them subsidies if they put their name on a list where we got to use their locations for filming. So they'd earn money just by allowing us to film maybe like a couple of scenes in their pub or a war scene like on their farm, on their land. It's just sitting there not doing anything. They're going to let us put tanks in it and recreate some kind of battle. So I've been going over it and it's like, okay, realistically speaking, the way that I want to do it, we'd either have to film it in like Britain or Europe. And then I kind of thought, but I'm Maori. And nobody ever tells the story of the effort that the Maori put into World War II. Do you know any movies out there that are about the Maori Battalion? They've made a few movies about African Americans' involvement in World War II and First Nations and Japanese and American and Russian and German and British and whatever, but not the Maori Battalion. So that's what I thought I'm going to do, the War Babies. I'm going to tell the story of my Uncle Nig and his experience fighting in World War II in the Maori Battalion. And because of the way that I'm going to do it, it's going to be quite hard hitting. It's going to, I think I would probably cry. I want to film it in black and white, and it means that when I get justice and I get out of here, I want to go home to New Zealand and I'm going to get in contact with some of my cousins and say, can you arrange a meeting with Uncle Nig's family because I need to do some research about. I know like 0.5%. I know that he flew to the UK first and then he was stationed in Europe, and I can't remember if he said he went to Africa or not. I can't remember, but I know he was in Europe because he taught me how to be He taught me how to play poker and been a little bit dishonest, let's put it that way. But he said that he learned when he was stationed in Europe. He learned how to trick people playing poker when he was stationed in Europe. He was called Uncle Nig because he was very, 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 very dark skinned. So I don't need to fill in the blanks as to what the Nig stands for, but that wasn't his real name. And he was the nicest man you could ever possibly want to meet. And he was my Nana's brother, my Nana's little brother. And so I want to make the war babies from the Maori Battalion's perspective. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, where the hell are we going to get all those planes and tanks and all of that from that we're going to need to recreate tanks driving down roads? Like, where the hell are we going to get them all from? And then I thought, well, because it's called the War Babies, because of what it is, because of how I've written it, because of the concept of it, what if they're not like actual real ones? What if they're... Because I was thinking of, please forgive me, I can't remember the name of it. If I looked it up, I'd be like, oh, God. It would come to me if I sat for it long enough, but this is a live, so I think it's a Taika Waititi movie about a little boy's imaginary friend being Hitler. And how in a movie like that, if he was flying a plane, it would obviously look like a model plane, or like that it was just a plane, wood cut out like the shape of a plane, and the kid wearing straps across his shoulders, like that sort of thing. It would keep the budget down, but I think it would actually add to the hard-hitting expo of the message that this movie is trying to put across. And so now I think I've found my next movie, The War Babies. My youngest would have been all over this because it's involving all the war stuff. My boys just love the war stuff. And I'm really looking forward to learning about my Uncle Sonny's war effort, and what he saw, and because obviously his family will know the stories better than me. If they've got photos we can use, then we can look when we're ready to make it, and that, we can look for a whole pile of young Maori actors, young boy Maori actors and young Maori actors in that. How beautiful, eh? And we'll get like young, because I want to tell the story of like him growing up in New Zealand and then having to become a man and go off to war. I'm going to tell that. I'm going to tell my Uncle Nig's story. The Maori Battalion are considered, if you look it up, it used to be number one, some say like in the top 10, but the most feared battalion in the world, the most feared warriors in the world. Because even in the 40s and that, when everyone else considered themselves technologically advanced and civilised, we were still rock-running spear chuckers, eating people. And apparently, in order to show their dominance, they'd eat some of the Germans that they killed. And when the Germans used to see them coming, they used to call them like demons and that, and run off. And so, yeah, the story has to be told of how my uncle went from being a boy to a man, to fight the axis of evil. And now look, his great niece is doing the same thing, fighting in the Maori Battalion against the axis of evil, except this time the axis of evil are Europe and Britain. Anyway, so I had to share that. I've slowly fallen in love with this movie. I want to film it in black and white. I want to make it look like an old black and white movie. It'll be my first black and white movie. So, yeah, I'm excited. We'll need to find like young Indigenous actors. I can't wait. Yeah. So that's what I've been doing, and I just had to share it. The title the title might change. It's because I haven't had a drink and my tongue is starting to dry out. What was I going to say? Yeah, but I could definitely start it as a radio series. Because the whole point of, the reason why I keep saying when I get out of here and I get a home of my own, the first thing I have to do is start my games company and set up my home-based radio station, my own internet radio station. Because all the movies that I'm wanting to make and all the TV shows that I can make, a lot of them can be done first as radio stories and radio series. So then at least while we're making this stuff behind the scenes, they're getting a taste of it before they get the visual imagery. I said to my son, our special effects people at the radio station are going to have to be phenomenal. Because I said to him, this is where my son was going to be my advisor and that, because I said, I would be utterly disgraced if someone's laying there, like a granddad's laying there, maybe he was in the war, maybe he was in the military, maybe he just loves planes and military planes, laying back listening to one of my stories and the sound of the plane, and then him going, that's not a mosquito, that's a blah, 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 blah. Oh my God, I'd be humiliated. So, yeah, everything has to be authentic. I'm going to need people who can speak German. I'm going to need people who can speak. Yeah, well, see, that's the thing. My actors, they're going to have to speak Maori. We're going to have to do some of it in Maori because my nana and my Uncle Nig and that, they could speak fluent Maori. My nana used to get beaten for speaking Maori because she was she was removed from her family and sent to boarding school after her mum died. And the nuns, well, I don't know if they were nuns, but the teachers and that, because she couldn't speak English, so they forced her to speak English by beating her every time she spoke Māori. So, yeah. So my actors are going to have to speak Māori, which isn't going to be a problem, but I'm going to need German speakers, all sorts. Oh my God, this is so exciting. I get so excited when I create another movie or video game, or, because it's more for the kids to do. It's giving them a fruit salad. It's giving them like a banquet of options, rather than just like making the one game for years and years and years and years and years, and that like EA do. They milk the one game. That just makes me want to vomit. The thought of just like milking the Quantum Menace or the Soul Collector, just milking it for all it's worth, that just is repulsive. I'd rather just gracefully have one of my games gracefully fade out and become like an icon in 30 years' time, rather than be something that, how they do like FIFA football like every 30 seconds, and all they've done is like change the font and charge twice the money. Like it's just, they add a new manager and it's suddenly become new. That just, ugh, no thank you. I'd rather like arrive with a bang and fade out like a fireworks display, and then have people remember it, rather than people go, oh my god, shut it down. Like, flogging a dead horse sort of thing. That would just be shameful for me. Um, but yeah, it gives the kids lots of different techniques to learn, depending on the season that they come and stay. But the thing is as well, um, if there are any kids that come to my school who get billeted to my school, and they don't want to go back, they don't have to. I'm going to have it written in the contracts with these governments that allow me to set up these schools that if for any reason we deem it unsafe for the child to go back for the sake of their physical or mental health, or they are a talent so great we can't let them go, I'm actually going to have like a dorm that is for billeted students, where they'd move from the Pure Waters kids camp, so to speak, up to the billeted dorms. So they'd have like more peace and quiet in that, because they would be like permanent residents, permanent students, like a boarding school basically is what I'm trying to say. So there might be some kids that end up working on all of them. I mean, that would be so cool. Oh, that would make me quite emotional. Especially if they were one of the first, like the first bunch when I opened the gates. So, and then we're going to put on all sorts of concerts, music concerts and theatre productions and outdoor theatre productions. And wherever it is that I build my foundation, I'm going to need a lot of land. I can set my businesses up all over the world, but my foundations, I'm going to need a lot of land. So, yeah, so I had to share that. The name of that movie's I know the name of that movie. Gaming God Yoni. Please shout out. Sorry, I don't look down when I'm talking. I stay focused on what it is that I have to say. But hi, Gaming God Yoni. Plus, as well, the kids will learn about World War Two, and more importantly, the kids will be learning about another Indigenous perspective, like the forgotten voices of these world wars are the Indigenous people, and none more so than like your islanders. Most people don't even know who and what Maori people are, let alone the other Polynesians like Fijians and Samoan and all that. So this way we get to, yeah, I think it's just a really beautiful idea. The name of that, I think it's got a really silly name, but I'm pretty sure the boy's imaginary best friend is Hitler. So it's going to be a very serious war movie. I think it's going to make people quite emotional. I can guarantee you a lot of people are going to be in tears. It's going to be quite hard hitting, but I think I can do it in a way where it's not. I don't. I don't want to say twisting the knife in. Not twisting the knife in. That's too harsh of a word to use. Nailing in the point. Making the message obviously clear. You're not going to, when you walk away from watching this movie, you're not going to be able to say, oh, I wonder what that was about. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, it's one of those movies that I hope I live long enough to see be made, because then it means I've got foundations in other countries. But I think it would be probably the one movie other than The Story of My Life, my biographical movie, that will have me in tears. Not just because it would be the story of my uncle, because of how I've written it. I remember I had the same feeling when I saw Schindler's List. I've only seen it once, that and The Green Mile. I've only seen them once, can never ever watch them again. Ever. Ever in the history of ever. I remember I watched it at the movies and I came home and I rang my mama and I cried. I absolutely bawled my eyes out. Why? Why did they do it to the mum? Whenever I needed to have a cry, like, yeah, I just put my head on my mum or my sister's lap and just cry. I couldn't understand. Yeah, I can never watch those movies again. And Grave of the Firefly, Studio Ghibli. My son loves that movie, but I saw it once, can never watch it again. No, thank you. I love Studio Ghibli, but oh my god, it ripped my heart out. I can never watch that again. And I kind of want the same thing for the War Babies. I want people to watch it, like empathic people to watch and say, I don't even want to watch that again. Because it's like, for me, writing it, it's made me emotional and it's been eye-opening, humbling, eye-opening, purifying. And this is just like the screenplay, this is just the story concept. So when I go home, when I go and see my sister, I'm going to go and see my Uncle Nig's family and see what I can find out about him. And then when we're ready to make the movie, I want to do a whole pile of research. Maybe even, I was thinking, turn it into a documentary where we actually film the whole process of me going to meet my Uncle Nig's whānau. It'll probably be at the marae or something. And hearing these stories about him and everything, and then looking at the photos and like turning it into a whole documentary, and then maybe when we bring the movie out, we can bring the documentary out at the same time, so people can see the making of it. I think that would be quite lovely. The name of that movie is I'll put a link in the description box below. There's probably people in the bleachers shouting out the name. It's called blah blah. I keep thinking it starts with H, like, I'm not even gonna. Anyway, so I'm gonna go and have another coffee, and I will speak to you later. Hi, Kale Randoms. Hi, Kale Randoms. Hi, Shan. Or is it Cian? Shan or Cian? Hi, guys. Thank you for listening. I'm going to go now. Speak to you later. Love you. Ka kite anō.